Whom shall we start? Good afternoon, one and all present here. I, Nitu Sharma, welcome you all in this webinar on a 3 into 3 strategy for beyond the third wave. I specially welcome our today's esteemed guest, Dr. Kalpana Gopalan, IS officer, and our principals, Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar sir and Dr. Rekha Kumari Singh ma'am. Now, I request Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar sir, principal of Anand Law College, to introduce our today's esteemed guest, Dr. Kalpana Gopalan.
Hello, 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 hello. आवाज आ रहा है मारे नीतू बेन?
The
Yes, sir. You're audible.
आ रहा है. Okay. I, Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar, Principal of Anand Law College. Today, Anand Law
Nitu,
College
can you
and
switch off
Anand
your
College.
Can you mute yourself? Nitu, please. Yeah, thank you.
आ रहा है आवाज?
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I, Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar, Principal of Anand Law College. Today, Anand Law College and Anand College of Legal Study, managed by Sri Ramakrishna Seva Mandal, jointly organized a webinar on C3 strategy for beyond the third wave. Today's our guest and speaker, I welcome to Dr. Kalpana Gopalan, IAS. I welcome to our Anand College of Legal Studies in charge principal and our colleague Rekha Kumari Singh. I welcome to our both the institutions teaching and non-teaching staff members and dear students. I give some introduction to our today's guest and speaker, Dr. Kalpana Ben Gopalan, IAS officer. She is now the additional chief secretary, Labor and Public Grievance Redressal Government of Karnataka. So many awards achieved by him. Dr. Gopalan, IAS is composite public policy professional, a true versalist. She wears many hats, practitioners, policymakers, scholar, author, volunteer, and mother. She secured 19th rank in the All India Combined Civil Service Examination in 1987. Her 33 years works experience in the Indian Administrative Service spans land administrations, energy, handicrafts, urban management, public distribution, system supports, rural development, youth training and education. Dr. Kalpana is recipient of the Mother Teresa Women Empowerment Award for outstanding contribution to excellence in leadership, the International Human Rights Award under the Women of Courage categories 2019, the Sexy Brilliance COVID Leadership Award, the Social Activist Pratibha Suman, the SARC Nation Human Rights Association Award, the Inspiring Changemaker Giving Economics Award, the Bhavishya Ke Silpakar Award, Thought Leader Certification Dr. Jessica Social Labs 2020, the Jenisen Outstanding Pathway of Governance Leadership Award 2021. She was recognized a great warrior of humanity by the International Human Rights Advisory Council for her humanitarian service and best practice on COVID-19 prevention 2020 and appreciated by UNICEF and the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science for COVID-19 Response 2020. She is LinkedIn Wonder Woman and Inspiration Leader of 2020 and accommodations by the National Social University ERW 2020, Rajiv Gandhi University for Health Science, Viswesvarappa Institute of Technology, where empowering women growth, Gulbarga University, Jain University, Ramaya Institute of Technology, Acharya Institute Academy of Sanskrit, Sri Dharam Trust, SJS Institution 2019, Honorary Council Republic of Maldives 2015, and Institutions of Engineering of India 2013. She succeeded the NLM UNESCO 2000 Award for Karnataka with her work literacy and the Karnataka Ratna Award 2013 for Carve handicraft. Kalpana pursues her academic interests as Senior Research Fellow in the National Institute of Urban Affairs, New Delhi. Visiting faculty fellows in the Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, Acharya, Bangalore B School, and Kumarba Rural University, Simago Members Advisory Board, AIMS School of Business, a Bangalore member of Academic Council Mahatma Gandhi Kasi Vidyapit Varanasi and member of MDPP Advisory Committee, Presidency University Bangalore in India. She is Chief Editor Advisor IJ 360MR and member of Editorial Advisory Board of IJBST, IJSRW and IFERP journals. Dr. Kalpana volunteers as advisor Akshay Patra Foundation Bangalore, Ashoka Investor for the Public Technical Advisor, Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement, Milestones in India. Advisor Bangalore Women Forum, member of Advisory Panel, Center for Health and Development of Bangalore Speakers Hall, HCR Initiative, Maharashtra, member of Advisory Board of World Congress of Women 2019 and member of YWCA. A prolific writer, blogger and speaker, she has served as Secretary, Postmaster International IMB Aden. She has an active social media presence in LinkedIn, YouTube, academic education, SSNR. While he travels in North America, Europe, and Asia, Kalpana is comfortable living and working in a multicultural milieu. She likes to music and the company, her husband, and two children. Once again, the welcome to Dr. Kalpana Gopalan to our both the institution and our management, and welcome to all the participation. Thank you very much.
I request Dr. Kalpana ma'am to enlighten us on today's topic. Please, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Parmar, for that very generous introduction. One thing I would like to add though, I, like you, share a Gujarati heritage. My mother is from Ahmedabad. I'm the product of the original two states marriage. My father is a Tamil and my mother is a Gujarati. And I remember happy days in my childhood in Ahmedabad and Rajkot. Um, eating all those lovely, delightful dokras and ghatiyas. So that is something. So came to Majama.
Great, great to hear, ma'am. Great to hear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
welcome once again, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Uh, all of you, I'll be speaking this afternoon. Thank you for having me here, and I'm so glad to be able to speak to you. The title of my talk is a 3 times 3 strategy for beyond the third wave. Now, why do I say 3 times 3? Just the title needs some explanation. I am going to present just 3 points to you, and I will not use a PPT, therefore, you have to listen. A three pronged strategy for how we meet the global working world during and beyond the third wave. We are already racing towards the third wave of COVID 19. So, how do we face the post COVID world and the post third wave world? A three pronged strategy. And each strategy of those three has three sub strategies. Therefore, 3 times 3. So I'll be presenting just 9 points to you. Sit back and listen. Winston Churchill exhorted change the way we live and work and what we need to do to adjust to the new normal of the post COVID 19 world. Now, this is not an academic talk. This is something which is going to be useful to you as you complete your education and enter the working world. Today, I will present 3 arguments to you. First, I argue that the new normal of the post COVID world will see major changes in our professional world. I see 3 vectors of professional change: the accelerated importance and use of information technology, unconventional ways of working, including freelancing and work from home, and increased inter-organizational and intersectoral collaborations and networks. Second, I argue that these changes will demand personal transformations from each of us, of which 3 are cardinal: embracing uncertainty and change, becoming a continuous learner, and practicing personal and collective social responsibility. My third and final argument is that capacity building is the single enabler and tool available to us to navigate the changes that we will confront in the professional and personal world. To leverage capacity building, we need to harness youth who are outside the formal institutional network. Focus on the frontline and backroom workers who are vital to decision making and implementation, and design training programs so as to train teams and not just individuals. These, in essence, are my 3 arguments. Why has COVID 19 thrust this imperative upon us? Does a crisis by itself ensure reform? Every great crisis to mankind has seen a period of confusion, followed quickly by rapid counter responses. In challenging times, we question accepted realities, devise quick solutions, often outside the usual compass, some of which may be effective enough to become normal quotidian practice. This was demonstrated in the world wars as well as pandemics such as the Spanish flu. History also suggests that the global economy is remodeled in significant ways after a major crisis like COVID 19, spurring the adoption of new technological strategies and business models. The SARS outbreak in 2003 is seen as a causal factor for the adoption of online shopping by China, which resulted in Alibaba's rise. The balance of payments crisis in India led to the paradigm shift of liberalization, globalization, and privatization. The economic and humanitarian crisis unleashed by COVID 19 is thus an opportunity to reform sectors such as skilling, healthcare, the unorganized sector, and education, which are the underpinnings of our political economy. Now, what changes will we see in the post COVID professional world? We are witnessing several shifts that are taking place in the world of work. The multi-sectoral acceleration of information technology, the advent of freelancing and work from home modes, and the need for lateral, cross-sectoral and inter-organizational collaboration are 3 such seminal changes. Let us first look at the advent of technology. The CEO of IBM, speaking in an online forum, said history would look back on this moment as the moment when the digital transformation of business and society suddenly accelerated. COVID 19 has increased digitalization in all spheres of our professional world, whether it is education, healthcare, governance, or entertainment. As schools closed in many parts of the world, e learning and e delivery of education saw a smart breakthrough. States like Karnataka launched the Makkalavani, children's voice, for disseminating educative and entertaining content to children. Will the change roll back once we are over the pandemic? Even while keeping teachers integral to the education process, there will be a new flexibility and agility with curated content through platforms like Coursera and entirely new learning experiences through artificial intelligence, virtual intelligence, and mixed experience tools. Healthcare is seeing similar changes. Digital efforts in Wuhan to contain the pandemic via smartphone trackers demonstrated a powerful new public health tool. Kerala Police launched Project Eagle Eye to use drones for surveillance during the lockdown, using technology as a tool to complement manual surveillance in topography which is inaccessible, such as pocket roads and open fields where jeeps cannot traverse. In the entertainment industry, Netflix and Amazon Prime are seeing a big boost. Netflix viewer numbers have swelled as lockdowns across countries kept people at home. Even the requirements of daily activities need digital navigation. As people have been forced physically apart, they turn to video calls on WhatsApp. All these demonstrate the growing acceptance of technology to help us feel connected. As people become more comfortable with technology and service providers upgrade their infrastructures, creating a better pipeline and more streamlined and user friendly experiences, technology becomes easier to live with day to day. The second change in the professional world is the growth of freelancing and work from home modes. COVID 19 has propelled us to experiment with work from home on an unprecedented scale. As the CEO of Wipro put it, work from home will define a new normal for a lot of industries and will create new opportunities for us to be able to do work more globally. WFH has gone beyond our quotidian processes and scaled new innovative heights. Recently, my daughter, who is a corporate lawyer, was engaged in the Facebook Geo deal. This US $5.7 billion investment by Facebook in Reliance Industries Geo platforms and later a similar investment by Google as well set a new standard in remote negotiation with extensive M&A dialogue happening online, even including due diligence and agreement negotiations. This is one of the biggest deals that has taken place when there is a nationwide lockdown in both India and the US, the two countries where the two parties of this deal are based. Transactions of this magnitude, especially transnational ones, usually involve considerable travel and face to face meetings and facilities by the higher management and their financial and legal advisors. This time, however, all this happened online. Another shift that we may expect is the emergence of the gig economy. Each of us will have to get used to becoming a freelancer. Remote hiring of technical talent will become the norm. Even before COVID 19, we were seeing permanent employers, such as governments and universities, cutting down on hiring and increasingly outsourcing even their core functions. While this may create job insecurity, it is not necessarily a bad thing or even a new one. Take a surgeon. My son is a neurosurgeon. A surgeon is attached to one hospital, but he consults in many hospitals. Some surgeons even consult online and earn remuneration from multiple organizations. Therefore, a talented and skilled individual can peddle her or his expertise across organizations and be paid by all of them. Remote hiring of talent will become the norm, with corporate positions opening up to skilled candidates everywhere, prioritizing skills over pedigree and geography, all of which is good news for both the economy and the talent pool. It makes talent pools more diverse and businesses and economy stronger. The third change in the working world is the emergence of more cooperation and collaboration. Gig economy and pervasive freelancing will bring in this change across sectoral silos. As freelancing becomes more prevalent, teams will be self created rather than being curated by leaders and will become more interdependent, more collaborative, more agile, and more flexible. COVID 19 saw the pharmaceutical giants GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi forget their commercial rivalry to join hands to build a vaccine, pooling their relative strengths of adjuvant technology and a virus antigen, while Google and Apple teamed up to evolve standards for contact tracing. Last year, I worked as Additional Chief Secretary of the Department of Youth Empowerment and Sports, and I headed the National Social Service Scheme of Karnataka. You also will be familiar with NSS. Now, NSS Karnataka teamed up with the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, which is our medical university in Karnataka, and NIMANS, and the National Health Mission to provide curated training on COVID 19 response to NSS officers and volunteers, who in turn disseminated this content to communities. All this cooperation and collaboration demands that we build up networks and skills, build each other up professionally with no room for envy or backbiting or jealousy. So, this brings me to my second argument. The post COVID individual, you and I, what personal transformation is required? The first, embrace change and uncertainty. Heraclitus said that the only thing that is constant is change. Pragmatism demands that we survive the present moment while building ourselves to thrive in a very different future. In a topsy turvy world, how does one stay sane and calm? Questions are everywhere. What the future will hold? How will life change? What will the new normal be? Uncertainty is uncomfortable, yet change is inevitable. And COVID 19 has only accelerated the pace of change and made it palpable. In such a dynamic and unpredictable situation, those who accept uncertainty and are willing to take swift, decisive, and risky action will hold the advantage. As lockdowns were announced and non essential businesses were instructed to close, business owners were suddenly faced with a tough choice of either stopping operations completely or finding new ways to provide the service. Many restaurants closed, and you would have seen this in all major cities, Ahmedabad, Rajkot included. Restaurants closed but kept their kitchens open, tying up with delivery services like Swiggy or Zomato. Barbers, whose salons closed down, began to offer home haircut services. Hence, the first personal transformation that the post COVID challenge demands from us is the realization that change is the only constant. and that things may change any moment. This calls upon us to embrace uncertainty, develop equanimity, mental balance, emotional intelligence, and agility of thought and action. Next, the personal transformation that is required is to become a continuous learner. Continuous learning opens our minds and changes our attitudes. Knowledge is now at our fingertips. To function effectively amongst this rapidly changing world of technology, we need to learn new things to remain valuable. Those not making use of this opportunity will stagnate. Do not be left behind. Ensure that you remain up to date. Keep up with industry trends and adapt your skill sets. Resources for continuous learning are many. Read magazines and online articles. Analyze and critique case studies. Subscribe to publications relevant to your work or interests. Connect with global networks using Skype, social media, and email. Attend training courses and webinars. Try MOOCs such as Coursera and edX. Listen to podcasts and watch documentaries. The days when one went through a neat progression of study, work, retire will be replaced by a career of constant personal reinvention and learning with doing. Therefore, continuous learning is vital to prepare yourself for the coming future. Our third and most important self transformation is the practice of collective social responsibility. We are familiar with CSR or corporate social responsibility, but this is not enough. CSR is still someone else's job. It is up to each of us to adopt personal social responsibility. We have a duty to each other. Personal social responsibility is easier to practice, say by teaching a child or helping a destitute person in need. But what COVID 19 has brought home to us is a larger collective social responsibility. The health of our communities depends on our individual actions. Thus, it emphasizes our responsibility to the community. There are many ways in which the pandemic has expanded opportunities for collective social responsibility. We have suddenly and sharply become aware of a joined up world. While emphasizing physical distancing or social distancing, as it is called, COVID 19 has also reminded us how joined up, how interconnected our world is really is. The virus spread from a market in Wuhan, China to almost every corner of the globe in just 3 months. Such a public health crisis is a demonstration how connected we are and how what happens overseas or in a neighboring state can directly and immediately impact lives in our country, state, and home. As we collectively navigate the COVID 19 public health crisis, there are ways in which we can practice collective social responsibility. The only way to counter the spread of COVID 19 is for each of us to follow the discipline and protocols. Wash our hands, keep our distance, sanitize ourselves, stay at home in lockdowns. The health of our family, community, and the economy depends on us setting aside personal wants and needs for the good of the whole community and doing this voluntarily. Social distancing causes a disconnection that can be disorienting. While we need to maintain physical distance to stop the spread of COVID 19, we need social connection more than ever. Therefore, COVID 19 is an opportunity to practice collective social responsibility, helping us to overcome our prejudices, reinforce our ethics and values, extend our reach, find ways to reach out and involve, develop curiosity and compassion. So, I placed before you the changes that we can expect to face in the professional world and three strategies to meet those changes. I also placed before you the kind of personal transformation that is required for us to be able to meet those changes. Now, I will tie these two things together to show you that to bridge the changes in the professional and personal world, the critical tool is capacity building. As we emerge out of the pandemic, it is expected that governments and corporates invest in better cities, health, education, technology, but most of all in capacity building. What aspects of capacity building should we as individuals and as a nation focus upon? First, leadership. Every big crisis is a test of leadership. But COVID 19 is not really about political influence or corporate power. It is about the everyday leadership that we, as individuals and citizens, demonstrate in our daily lives. Therefore, our capacity building should focus as much on qualities and character traits as on subjects and specializations. Traits such as calmness and equanimity, skills such as communication and problem solving, the attributes of a strong work ethic and a compassionate worldview. And of course, the leadership that is able to lead with persuasion and influence and not dictate, encourages participation, not hierarchy, and is purpose led and not power driven. These should form part of skill development as much as technical skills. Second, the front line and back room become important. In an increasingly digitalized world, with social media creating a virtual reality, presence and authenticity become even more important. Decision making in the pandemic, for example, is taken at the higher levels of the medical fraternity or the bureaucracy. But these decisions are crucially dependent on the kind of inputs and information that flow from the bottom, from the lab technician or the ASHA worker who is in the field. Similarly, the decisions taken at the apex level have to be properly disseminated to and understood by each person down the line. Without this, implementation suffers. COVID 19 is not merely a health crisis but a logistical marathon. Vast quantities of data, medical and non medical, are being collated, entered, sorted, cleaned, and readied for decision makers by tribes of data entry operators and analysts. As the pandemic progresses, we hear of swabs being improperly labeled, which become useless in determining treatment and containment, or of inadequacy of beds. But it is not the number of beds or ventilators that will determine outcomes, but the quality of medical personnel. We can procure a bed, but to get a qualified nurse who understands infection control or a pulmonologist is not something we can procure in a month or even a year. These are long term investments and highlight the importance of the frontline and backroom workers and to respect dignity of labor. Thirdly, in capacity building, the focus should be on training teams and not individuals. We saw that the pandemic makes freelancing acceptable and calls for greater collaboration across teams and organizations. It is likely that future teams will comprise permanent, temporary, freelance, and machine employees, and this diversity will call for greater need to build cohesion within the members. Yet, our educational system does not prepare us for cross sectoral coordination of equals. Engineers train with engineers, doctors with doctors, bureaucrats with bureaucrats. Within each fraternity, hierarchy is the fallback option to resolve differences of opinion. But what happens when a policeman has to implement a medical decision made by a doctor based on data analytics produced by a computer scientist? We get lost in translation as they struggle with their different vocabularies and work processes. To avoid this and to face future crises better, we need to train teams, not individuals. Our pedagogy should mandatorily include case studies, self reliance and decision making situations, problem solving, immersion experiences, and the like. So, I have placed before you a 3 times 3 strategy to cope with the world beyond the third wave. In conclusion, let me say that choices, not crises, determine our opportunities. COVID 19 has changed the world like nothing before. The global meltdown and lockdown that we see happening with COVID 19 is unprecedented and perhaps even incomprehensible to human minds. Yet, amidst all this, opportunities lurk. It is time for governments, businesses, and individuals to prepare for the worst, but also prepare themselves to recognize and utilize these opportunities and keep the faith that we may transform to a newer, stronger, and reinvented India. Thank you all. My best wishes. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us. On the behalf of Anand Law College and Anand College of Legal Studies, I request and invite Dr. Rekha Kumari Singh, ma'am, in charge Dean, Faculty of Law, Sardar Patel University, as well as in charge Principal, Anand College of Legal Studies, to propose a vote of thanks to Dr. Kalpana, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shetu. It is really a great honor for me to convey a vote of thanks on behalf of both the organization. Like the way man you have expressed in 40 minutes, the entire, like, we always say that every coin has a two sides. So, considering the element that how it has impacted in positive as well as in negative aspect. But yeah, the three strategies, which is very important, that how we can ready for the worst conditions and how we can skill compared to only just putting that is the oxygen and instrumental for keeping the ready for the third wave. So rightly said, ma'am, it is really a need of an art and we should work on it. And on behalf of both the organization, thank you so much for your kind knowledge what you shared with us. And we are indebted for your valuable time, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Hope to see you live soon.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Bye bye. Best of luck.
Thank you, ma'am. बच्चों, now students, now you can leave.